Okay, let's talk about Master Vog. I will try to be as brief as possible just because I want to get, Warlock Titan Hunter over quickly instead of just telling you what to use exactly for each single encounter, because at the end of the day, it's all about preference. But I will give you recommendations real quick before I start the actual encounters. So, for Warlock, I would suggest either Shadebinder, because stasis turrets are, insane. In case you don't know what the combination for that is, it is Bleak Watcher and Glacial Harvest for aspects. For fragments, it is Whisper of Torment, Durance, Chains, and Conduction. Now, your other option, if not that, is probably Devour Warlock, because Devour helps you stay alive. And trust me, if you're not all in level with this raid, you're gonna have problems staying alive. But Devour, luckily, heals you on kill, so you can run the Devour build, in which you Nova Bomb, get your health back, eat your grenade, get your health back, melee, get your health back, and then run it with something like Xenophage or Anarchy, of course, in case you need to take down Wyverns and things like that, and just generally play safe. That's definitely the best two builds for Warlock. Of course, if you're doing the boss encounters, at that point you got to switch to Well of Radiance, because that's just a given. Well of Radiance with Luna's at Templar, and then Starfire Protocol at Atheon, pretty standard. And that's essentially it for Warlock. For Titans, I don't think really have much wiggle room. You either have to do Banner Shield Ursas from the average group if you're underleveled again. You could always do Bubble, but depending on if you're doing an LFG group or how your comms are, you may need to switch to Banner Shield for something like Templar. Other than that, really just comes down to Missile for the chest piece to do tons of damage with Thunder Crash, or if you're comfortable with it, doing Ashen Wakes on Titan with Burning Maul. But again, if you're not comfortable with it, I would just stick to Missile for just the additional damage, because again, if you're not up to light, Atheon is pretty chunky, and it might come down to a 3-phase, maybe even a 4-phase, depending on your team's light. And finally, for Hunter, honestly, I'm just going to straight up say there's no other reason to run anything but Night Stalker, other than maybe a Golden Gun for boss damage. Aside from that, Night Stalker is just by far and away literally the best super, subclass, everything that you can use. Invisibility for days, survivability, you could invis yourself, pick up downed teammates, and then invis them. Tether is clutch as well if you don't have breach and clear on certain parts of the map, or red bar enemies you can't breach, obviously. It's just the utility is insane. But during boss encounters, you could switch the Golden Gun for added damage if your fire team needs it. Other than that, 95% of the time, Night Stalker all the way, 100%. Revenant's not bad. Stasis is definitely not bad to use. However, Shadebinder shines at that much more, way better. After Hedron's got nerfed, Revenant isn't really all that, unfortunately. Shurikens are nice to freeze Wyverns. Dustfield, Squall, not really great in my opinion. So yeah, bottom tree Night Stalker with 6 Coyote all the way. Now that I've gotten all the suggestions for characters out of the way, let's talk encounters. Alright, so first encounter, the vault opening. Not really an encounter, but you know what I mean. For the vault opening encounter, from normal mode, it's basically the same thing, other than a few tweaks and changes. One, obviously, the light level, 1350 enemies instead of 1300, if I remember correctly. And then there are also going to be Overload Champions in this part. Obviously, there were none in normal mode. The Overload Champions only have 2 spawn points, as far as I'm aware. The spawn points I'll get to in a second here. But aside from that, I do want to note that Match Game is on, and you will be fighting normal Praetorians with Void Shields aside from the Overload Minotaurs. So just keep that in mind. You can use Void Sword, I don't know, Telesto, whatever you feel like, just whatever your preference is with Void. And same split up, 2-2-2. There's still Cyclopses, there's still Goblins, there's still Hobgoblins. There's just the difference of Overload Shields. So, once you're at your 2-2-2 locations, the Overload Minotaurs will spawn by the first plate which is the left of spawn, and then the other Overload Minotaur spawns between the middle and the right side of your plates. So basically the Minotaurs are diagonally across from each other when spawning. The Praetorian by the portal, which is by the right plate, is just the normal one. It's just a Praetorian by himself. You don't have to worry about that side. However, the Overloads spawn with a Praetorian with them. So those two sides that I mentioned will have two spawn at the same time. So just get ready to fight an Overload and a Void Shield Minotaur at the same time. On top of that, obviously, Goblins and Hobs also spawn in with them. So just be wary of that. I would recommend using things like Wither Horde, Anarchy, Guillotine like I mentioned. Obviously use Breach and Clear if you have that to your disposal for Overload stuns. It just comes down to basically, I think, Icarus SMG or a hand cannon, preferably with explosive payload, just for consistency stuns. And obviously, Icarus SMG can make Warmind cells, which can use cell suppression, Wrath of Rasputin, all that good stuff, yada yada. And that's essentially it. Just keep an eye on the Overloads and you should be fine. Open the vault door, go in, and you're good. Next up is Confluxes. This one got a beefy upgrade, I'd say. In this encounter, you're going to fight both barriers and overloads. They're a little split up, but they are both in the encounter. So, the way this is broken down, simplified terms, the barriers and the wyverns spawn together, not literally together at the same time, but they're in the same half of the fight. What I mean by half of the fight is you're going to defend Confluxes, then there's going to be Fanatics. So that's two split up different parts of the fight. The first half is wyverns and barriers. Barriers spawn immediately when you start the encounter, all the way far back right, far back left, and I would presume the middle, although I haven't done middle for this encounter yet for Master Vog. So get ready to just have anti-barrier and overload, preferably one on each side, 3 in total, and then one on each. So first barriers come out, try to nuke the barrier as fast as possible. Eventually wyverns will start spawning. The barriers come out, I believe, either for every single phase, so 3 total, either that or about every minute. I didn't time it, unfortunately, so I'm not 100% sure, but just keep an eye on barrier champions. Then, when you get into the Fanatic phase, you will have Arc-Shielded Harpies coming at you. I believe they're orange bars. And then, as mentioned, the Overload Minotaurs. They're going to be coming from all angles, so just get ready to knock those down. Keep an eye out for random Fanatics teleporting. Unfortunately, that still happens. And, of course, don't get too cocky with the Goblins, because even Goblins can just, 3-tap you out of this encounter. Recommendations. Me, personally, Warlocks, 100% Shadebinder, because Stasis Turrets just freeze everything. They give you breathing room. They even stop Wyverns and Champions in their tracks. So, can't go wrong with that. I don't think Well is very practical here. Devour's definitely good, but you got to play a bit more safer. You can get away with either one. It's just up to preference. Titans, I would say a missile is just your best bet, because worst comes to worst, if you can't kill a wyvern with your guns, you always have a missile in your pocket. And then hunters, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, Night Stalker, just Night Stalker all the way, baby. And as far as weapons goes, you can't really go wrong with Anarchy or Wither Horde to proc Breach, Xenophage for quick ad clear / Warmind cell making, and then anti-barriers should be scouts, and overloads should be SMGs or hand cannons. The reason I say scouts over something like Ariana's is in the event that too many people die, but you're close to beating the encounter, or you want to Sherpa aside by yourself, you can just quickly... Well, there's an alert there, just ignore that. You can quickly swap from scouts to SMGs, and, back and forth and so on, based on whatever you need. So you can, clutch it up and things like that. So for that, I don't really recommend Ariana's. Not that it's a bad gun or anything, but that's my logic. And that is pretty much it for Confluxes. Everything else is the same. You just watch out for champion spamming and wyverns, and move on. Oracles. Well, Oracles are largely pretty much the same. The only difference in this fight is you will get rushed by Overload Minotaurs. It's not the craziest change, but, they're still pretty deadly, so don't take them out of your sights. Other than the Minotaurs themselves, which, they spawn the same spots they would normally spawn, just like the Barrier Champions in the last encounter. Aside from them, it's the same thing, really. Just split up your fire team into 6 spots, cover 6 of the 7 oracles, leave the center oracle as, you know, the guinea pig. Anybody from L1 to R1 can watch it. Anybody covering L2 or R2 can also watch it. Just call it out, you know, who's getting what. Other than that, just stay in order. Call out when you pop your oracle, pop your rifts, your invis, your bubbles, such and such. Same recommendations for classes. Nothing really changes in here. It's just 7 waves, or not 7 waves, until you get 7 oracles, and then you beat the encounter. Watch out for hobgoblins, of course, because the snipers hit for a lot more than they do on normal. One recommendation I would make here is probably having solar resist on, solar and sniper resist, because a majority of enemies are going to be shooting you with solar, goblins, and hobs. The Minotaurs obviously have Void, however, you should be stunning and killing those Minotaurs almost immediately, so getting hit by their Void attacks is unlikely. And, of course, stay away from the Templar's sight. Pretty simple, bare bones. Let's go to Templar. So the Templar fight is where it starts getting a little tricky. First off, before anything, I would immediately recommend everybody puts on Void Resist and Concussive Dampener, because, simply put, the Templar is not a bitch anymore. Essentially, the Templar counts as a flying enemy, and, well, he will just nuke you in this mode, especially if you're not leveled up for him. Flying enemies do more damage, including Harpies as well, who are arc-shielded again in this fight. There are also Overload Minotaurs in this fight. Definitely would not go for the one phase for people that are not highlight, you know, super stacked, etc., etc., etc. I would definitely just worry about multiple phases. Just keep Anarchy on him, snipe him. You could double slug him, but again, not everyone has to. In fact, if you guys aren't like confident in it, I would just straight up have everyone go with a succession if you have that. Maybe a God or a Long Shadow. Just don't play hero by yourself, and you guys hopefully will be fine as long as you're not like 1330 light. All right, let's go to Gatekeeper. Now we've arrived to the main event, the 1 or 2 encounters where a majority of people get stuck on for Master Vogue. First up, Gatekeepers. I'm going to start this by saying I do believe a lot of people are overhyping and overcomplicating this encounter and, you know, claiming it's the hardest challenge in Destiny. You know, that's my personal opinion, but I will try to explain why, given how I will recommend doing the encounter. There's only one big difference, and that comes towards the end of the encounter when you get the whole glass throne portion. So we'll get there eventually. Let's talk about the beginning first. So the beginning, you're going to start off just as you would for normal mode. You're going to have one person covering the left plate and one person covering the right plate. Each of them will be covering the Overlord Minotaur that spawns, just like normal mode, killing them, as well as some goblins that come out. Totally the same, no difference. Now, the other 4 people are going to be kind of categorized as a separate team on their own from the portal people. Now, before I explain what the 4-man process is, I just want to go ahead and give the recommendations of what class element you should be using for this. As far as Warlocks go, 100% Shadebinder with Bleak Watcher. It is amazing for this. Not only can you protect yourself, freeze everything, and kill everything off, but also when your team is struggling timing-wise with the Praetorian and Wyvern, you know, synchronized killing, you can freeze a Minotaur, you can freeze a Wyvern. You can also use that time to chip away damage on the Wyvern, as, you know, they're yellow bars and they're going to kill you, but you still need to make them low to get the timing right. Also, obviously, if you're a Shadebinder and you're in a portal and a relic comes into your side, after the Praetorian's dead, you could throw a stasis turret grenade and then leave the portal with the relic while giving your teammate a turret to work with, so they're not getting overwhelmed. And as far as Titans go, I know Missile is the popular choice because you can just nuke a Wyvern or whatever instantly to not have it sack and things like that, but I personally think the play for this is definitely Banner Shield Ursas. The main reason for this is simple. First of all, Ursas, obviously you can block and never die. Second of all, you have Controlled Demolition to just blow up everything. But on top of that, you could also use Warmind's Decree, the artifact mod, along with Warmind Cell mods, to just blow up goblins with Controlled Demolition, thus making a Warmind Cell, thus being able to break up and blow up more adds. But also, you can run Cellular Suppression and shoot that Warmind Cell to stun and blind enemies, including the Wyvern and the Minotaur, which again will buy you time. So you can either kill them, blind them, and on top of all
all of that, you will also be making a bunch of orbs, and then when your teammate comes in and, you know, they need a super, or maybe they can use their current super, and then they can pick up a ton of orbs again and get a second super, thus helping them survive or clear whatever they need to clear, etc. So I think Banner Shield is the play, Shadebinder for Warlock, and then finally for Hunter, you kind of have a little bit of a 50-50 going on. I personally think Night Stalker is still the play. I would say it's more like 70-30, maybe 80-20. Night Stalker just has so much utility, so much synergy with staying alive, survivability, you know, basically unlimited invis, and then you can also have, you know, your Vortex grenades or your Wood Wall grenades, whatever, and also run, once again, Warmind's Decree, avoid splash damage, use Tether, make Warmind cells, use Cellular Suppression, blind everything, etc., etc. So, for that reason, I would recommend Night Stalker, Bottom Tree, 6 Coyote, Titan, once again, Ursa's, Banner Shield, Warlock, Shadebinder, because Lull frees everything. Okay, so, as far as the 4-man rotation goes, what you're going to do is have an anchor, go to Mars, go to Venus, just like normal, and one of them will call out, hey, I have the Praetorian, you know? So, player 3 of that 4-man group will obviously be the Relic person. They will wait for the call out to which portal they go to, and player 4 will be your temporary kind of floater. Player 4, basically, you're either going to shoot the Gatekeeper if it spawns, maybe help kill a Minotaur if somebody is like out of ammo or something like that, and other than that, you're just on standby for the Relic person to come out, hand you the Relic, and you're going to go in the opposite portal of where they just came from. Now, if your timing is going well, like rhythm-wise, flow-wise, then you shouldn't really need it, but if you happen to struggle and, you know, you fall behind or whatever, you have to res somebody, and then the timing is off, and someone has the Relic cooldown and they can't take it in the 4-man rotation, then you can incorporate one of the Plate Watchers into your rotation and just be like, hey, we have the cooldown, come pick this up, I'll switch with you, now I'll become the Minotaur Slayer for this plate. And as long as you just communicate with your team and follow that rhythm, you will be perfectly fine. Just always remember to watch the bottom left of your screen to see Gatekeeper appearing just in case, so they don't lock down the portals. And that's it for that first half of the fight. Once you see yada yada, something something glass throne, you know you can leave the portals, and then you go to the middle throne room. So for this portion of the fight, this is where things change a little bit and get just a bit hectic. So the fight remains the same in terms of what your objective is, which is to kill the Praetorians with the shields, so they don't sack, and then eventually they will spawn wyverns. But during this encounter, when said Minotaurs spawn on the sides, the left and the right side, along with goblins, there will also be barrier champions. There should be about 3 per side over the course of the entire rest of the encounter, so if you don't kill them fast enough, they start to stack up rather quickly, and I don't think you want 6 barrier champions just laser beaming you the entire time. That will spell disaster. Me personally, I'd recommend, if possible, have 2 people on stasis, preferably Shadebinders, and have each one on the left and right ready to freeze the enemy spawns. Even if you don't, or you can't kill the barrier champions, if you just freeze them, that buys you a lot of time to either group up and kill them, or just completely time them out from the encounter while your teammates are killing the Minotaurs, and then eventually the Wyverns. Also, everybody should be switching to anti-barrier rounds as soon as the first half of the encounter is done, if you haven't already switched to that, because you were using Warmind cells, and we're moving on to Atheon now. Well, we've arrived at the final boss of the raid, Atheon, for Master Vault of Glass, and, you know, you'd think this is probably going to be the hardest encounter of the raid. It makes sense, right? Final boss, it's all going to go crazy, it's where we're going to get destroyed. Well, I don't know about that. Unfortunately, at least in my opinion, unfortunately, the Atheon fight suffers from some oversight. Let me explain. The entire fight is basically completely the same. The only difference during this fight is that there are barrier champions inside the teleported side, whatever you get teleported, Mars or Venus, doesn't matter, there's barriers on both. And, yeah, during Oracle killing, 2 barriers spawn when the ad waves of Goblins and Praetorian come in. But, how should I put this? You don't have to fight literally a single thing in that portal once the Hydra dies. Like I said, I think this is a massive oversight. It kind of just bypasses half the fight and makes things incredibly easy. Now you're probably asking, what do you mean you don't have to fight anything? Well, once you get teleported and you've dealt with the Hydra and the 2 or 3 goblins, you can quite literally just sit in the back of the map, the far, far back of the map, turn around, and just stare at the oracles, and the enemies will do absolutely nothing to you. Absolutely nothing. At best, someone might spot you and fire a couple of shots at you, but then you can just put a rift down or a barricade, and that will completely immobilize them, and that's it. You just shoot oracles for free as the portal team. It's kind of silly, to be completely honest. It completely trivializes the fight, and all you really have to worry about is people dying to supplicants on the outside, which, granted, you know, it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. You can get stupid deaths, but for the most part, if the hardest thing for you to do is to not die to supplicants in the final boss fight, I think that's pretty good. So, outside of that, as far as callouts go, I personally recommend the book/numpad strat. Since your team is going to be in the back of Uganda anyway, you just call out, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 from left to right. But, of course, you can do, you know, far left, far middle, far right, etc., too. That's player preference, you know what I mean? As far as DPS goes, because that's really the only thing that's going to matter in this fight at this point, you should definitely not do the portal strat on the staircase. You should just do the middle strat. Main reasoning for this is, well, I mean, Atheon hits like a truck, because most people will be underleveled. And even with Void, Resist, and Concussive, if you have Atheon spamming you and a bunch of Heartbeat spamming you, which also do additional damage while in the air, chances are someone's going to die, if not multiple people are going to die. Then you have the whole detain factor, and it's just a recipe for disaster for most teams if you're not experienced. So I highly suggest just going to the middle and doing DPS from there. Now, what you should be using for DPS is no question, of course, Anarchy, if you own it. It is without a doubt the best by far, by a mile. There's a reason why it's getting nerfed. If you don't have Anarchy, you could either be the Relic person that's juggling the Relic up and down, and, you know, like, you put the Relic, cleanse, if people needed it, drop it, fire a rocket, with a horde, sniper shots, whatever you may have, a super, and then you pick the Relic back up, rinse, repeat until 9 seconds, then you can drop it permanently. And the rest of your team, definitely shoot Anarchies. Succession is also obviously great after you've done your 2 tags on Atheon. For everyone else, as far as super goes, Titans, I know Missile is the fan favorite here, but trust me, you definitely want to be Middle Tree, Burning Maul, Sunbreaker, and have Ashen Wakes equipped. This DPS strat is so nuts. Even if you're underleveled, you will be pushing fantastic numbers. Just to give you a point of reference, in a 3-phase kill as a Sunbreaker, in a scuffed DPS phase, I was doing 4 million damage as a Sunbreaker just using Fusion Nades, Anarchy, and a Sniper. 4 million. Now, granted, I am on level, so that's a F-ton because I'm on level. But even if you're under light, even if you get half of that, that's still 2 million damage in a 3-phase kill. That is plenty to get the job done. So, Sunbreakers for Titans, absolutely, without a doubt. I would not do anything else. Unless you, I guess you don't own Ashen Wakes and you don't have like a updated light roll, then I guess Missile is your only choice. But highly suggest Ashen Wakes. Warlocks, Well of Radiance. You don't need any explanation. Well of Radiance, Fusion Grenades, Phoenix, not Phoenix, Starfire Protocol. Why do we have 2 protocols? Whatever. Starfire Protocol, Fusion Nades, literally your only choice, no-brainer. And then Hunters, Celestial Nighthawk, Golden Gun. That's really your only DPS choice. Other than that, maybe you want to use Invis to stay alive if you're super underleveled. That's about it. Otherwise, Nighthawk. And that's your DPS choices. Oh, I forgot to mention also for guns, Xenophage, also good if you don't have Anarchy. Just wanted to throw that out there because for some reason I forgot it completely. And there you have it. I wish the 8th boss fight wasn't completely trivialized by oversight, if you want to call it that. But it is what it is. The hardest thing you probably have to do is Gatekeeper, or maybe Templar if you struggle to kind of chain stuff. But overall, not too crazy, not too difficult in my opinion. Definitely not super easy, I will say that. This is definitely a challenging raid to do on Master. But that's it. Hopefully this guide helps people, and if it does, you know, a like and a sub would be appreciated. I also stream daily on Twitch, twitch.tv/sneakybeaver. And yeah, share with your friends. That's it. I'm out. Clap!